Welcome, Flyers fans. You're listening to Chris Mayer, Flyers Fan Mania 93 on YouTube.
All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today I'm back with another video here. We are back with another Q&A. I know I did one previously in this season, and that was back a couple months ago. And now I wanted to do another one towards the end of the year because I feel like it's important. I want to get some different questions in for some people. And honestly, I love doing these. I love answering your questions. I think they're really fun. So one quick thing before I get into those said questions, I had some comments, and I actually had a couple people texting me about my audio. I did fix that. It's better on my end, and it will be better on your end. It should sound much better. Should sound higher. I had an issue with the soundboard that I just got. With the audio, but I did fix it, and everything should be fine now. So let's get into those questions. So again, as I said, there was a good amount of questions that I got, and I did get a couple duplicates, and starting off, it actually is a duplicate. This is from Mike Taylor and David Cons, and their Twitter is Mike is Jersey Mike _ FDTF, and then David Cons is at David Cons too. And both of these questions were similar about the Flyers coaching staff. Mike says, I think the next coach is going to be very important to build the confidence of this young, talented team. Who would be your top 2/3 choices? And then David says, who would you hire as head coach, possible candidates? So if I had to sit here, I think the one thing that we have to at least figure out first is, when are the Flyers going to hire a coach? And I think the biggest thing is, most likely it's probably going to be, my guess would be after the playoffs. I think they could look at some people that are maybe coaching in the playoffs. I don't know, though. My possible list, if I had to pick three guys, would be Jim Montgomery, Rick Tocchet, and Bruce Boudreau. The reason I think, some people might be saying, oh, well, no, John Tortorella. I think Tortorella is basically like another second going of AV. It's like if everybody buys in, it's great. If they don't, you start to lose different guys. He can, I know Tortorella can get everything out of his team. I know there are some players here that coached under him. Cam Atkinson played under Tortorella. So there's that too. But one thing that I will say is I just don't think that's going to work for the Flyers again. I think Jim Montgomery is the best bet. I think he's just a very solid coach. Those Dallas teams, when Montgomery was there, were pretty good. They were always competing. They were a game away from going to the conference finals in 2019 with Montgomery behind the bench. So, there's different things there. I know he stepped away from the game as well, but I think he'd be a really solid addition. Rick Tocchet would be another one. I think he'd be really good. I think it's a coach that nobody really knows much about Tocchet. He was pretty young in Arizona. It was his first year as head coach when he started there. And there's different things, and I think he would just be smart if you're trying to build a team that, wants a new identity and you're trying to find a new identity. I think Tocchet could help that. Boudreau, he gets offense going. I think that's one thing as well. I mean, we saw what happened in Vancouver. I think the biggest thing with Boudreau is he going to stay in Vancouver? There's been talk that he's not going to, and he could leave. So there's that too. So obviously you have to pay close attention to that. But if Boudreau does not re-up in Vancouver, or they end up going with somebody different, because I believe his contract is 2 years. So I believe they might be doing something different there where he's not there. But if that were to happen, he is definitely one guy I would go for. He actually was the guy I wanted before the Flyers, where it was actually right when they had fired AV. Boudreau was hired the night of that December 5th game against Tampa Bay, which is the last game AV coached here in Philly. So those would definitely be my three candidates for the coaches. Next question is from @Brett215 on Twitter. Do you have confidence in Chuck Fletcher? I do and I don't, and I think there's different areas of why I don't. I think there's been a lot of different misses on trying to add certain guys. I think Yandel was definitely one of them. And I know Yandel, to me, I don't think Yandel was brought here to play hockey. I think Yandel was here to help Kevin Hayes with everything, and that's completely understandable. So there's that. I think when the Flyers lost Matt Niskanen to retirement. He tried to find a defenseman, couldn't, and ends up going out and signs Eric Gustafsson, who was absolutely brutal here, and ended up getting traded at the deadline for a 7th-round pick. And that's all you could get for him. So there's that. And if I'm being honest, going back to Gustafsson, it honestly seems like that guy can only play well in Chicago. I don't know what it is, but it just seems that way. But again, there's different things that I think Fletcher could do. I do and I don't. I don't know if they'll be able to bring in the top free agent. I don't know if they'll have the kind of grab that the team might have had in recent years. You don't have Giroux. I know you have some other guys. You have Atkinson and Hayes and guys that are pretty well-known guys around the league that could draw in, other players and guys they play with. Like, Johnny Gaudreau, for example, that could work. I just don't know if, I do and I don't. I think there's different areas where Fletcher's very good at. I think drafting, they've done a good job. Now, developing players is a different story, but at least drafting, Cam York, Bobby Brink, Elliot Desnoyers, Zayt Wisdom, there's been some really good picks, and I know it's very early in those young guys' careers, but you get my point. They've had some pretty good picks so far, and hopefully some of them turn out. But again, I do and I don't. I mean, I think we have to see what happens. I think it's not going to be an easy job for Chuck Fletcher going into this offseason, but we'll see what happens. I think it's one thing at a time right now, but we'll see what happens. This one comes from the Soda Man OG on Twitter. He says the team needs to drop salary to be able to bring in talent. Very true. JVR is a no question when it comes to contracts that need to be eliminated to make the moves. Who else can you see as expendable based on the numbers? So, if I were to look at this right now, and I'm going to pull up Cap Friendly, because if I'm being honest, by the numbers, that is the question. By the numbers, if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to look at the Flyers roster, there are a handful of guys that I could see possibly going. Obviously, JVR is one. You're not getting rid of Hayes. You're not getting rid of Atkinson. Konechny, maybe. I don't know if you get the right offer. I don't see the Flyers trading Konechny, and I think it would be a mistake. Lawton, I don't think so. Oscar Lindblom, Lindblom is tough because, if I'm being honest, I don't necessarily feel like he's been put in the position. It's kind of similar to Gostisbehere, in my opinion, because when Ghost was here, it seemed like AV had no idea how to use him, no idea how to play him. And when Ghost was here, I said it for a while. I said, just trade him, because you have $4.5 million in the press box, just sitting up there at the time because he was basically a healthy scratch. It made absolutely no. It just didn't make any sense. It made no point whatsoever. And Lindblom could be that guy where it's like he's younger, and you can still try to move on from him. The Flyers are going to have to try to get all the money they can, and Lindblom's at a good contract at $3 million. He could be a guy. Cates, no. Farabee was just signed to an extension. Bobby Brink, no. Tippett, no. Frost, no. I know there's people that Frost, they want to move him, no. Nate Thompson, I don't think Thompson will re-sign here, so that's $800,000 off the books right there. McEwen, I think, will re-sign, and Brown has another year left on his contract, so that's the forwards. So I think JVR and Lindblom could be two possibilities. I would hate losing Lindblom, but I think it's just going to be so tough because they have different areas that they want to fill because they want to contend. So there's that. Provorov is another one. It's like, I don't necessarily, based off his comments, and I said this in my season review, I don't think Provorov wants to be here anymore. I really don't. So that could be $6.7 million out the window right there. Ristolainen, no, they just re-signed him. Sanheim, I think the Flyers will do everything they can to get Sanheim to stay. Yandel's not going to be here. Adder will most likely be in the AHL. York, I think, will be an NHL defenseman. Connaughton won't be here. I think Seaward could be re-signed. I know the organization does kind of, they've tried. They like him being the seventh guy. That could be. I don't know. I mean, again, this is just free agency as well, so they would lose these guys just on free agency and get money off the books there. And then Hart and Jones. Obviously, Hart's not going anywhere, and Jones, I do not think will be re-signing here. So As of right now, the Flyers in their final cap space have 98,939, and they have about 2.7 million on LTIR. So there's that as well, and that's just per cap friendly. So again, there's different areas of that as well, and I think there are a couple possibilities. I just don't know. I think it all depends on where they want to mold the roster. I know they've said different things, but we'll see what happens. This one comes from Zach. Zach Attack with two C's on Twitter. It's ZACKATTACC. He says, which young players currently on the roster do you see being here on opening night? Morgan Frost, Cam York, and Noah Cates, and also Owen Tippett, if you want to count him into that mix. Those are the same three. If you're counting younger players and you're counting, Frost and York and Tippett, then I'll say them three. But if it was just like Addard, Cates, guys like that, Bobby Brink, Cates would be the only one. But if you're counting younger guys, Frost, Tippett, York, and Cates. I think all of them are NHL players. Especially Cates. I think, out of all them guys, I think Cates is definitely one of them guys that really surprised me. Out of the call-ups and out of the guys coming out of college, he was very good. I mean, he was a +4 when he was here. Not saying it means much, but you get my point. He played well. He scored some goals. He was just very good defensively. Just everything all around in his game was really good. I think he does make the team out of camp. Next question. This also comes from Zach again. Who do you think is going to have the biggest breakout season on this team next year? If I'm being honest, I'm seriously hoping Frost is one of them guys. I think Frost could do it. I think Konechny could have another bounce back year. Tippett, it would be awesome if Tippett could do that as well. If I'm being honest, if I had to go one guy, I think I'm going to go with Frost. I mean, I think with the way that he ended his year, I think there was different areas that they really liked from him. I think different areas that Frost liked himself. So overall, I think Morgan Frost definitely could be part of that as well. Next question here comes from Michael Johnson. This is at Michael1847667 on Twitter. He said, should the Flyers hire an established GM or peel off an assistant from one of the consistently successful franchises? I don't know. I think I'd have to answer that question if the Flyers were to let go Chuck Fletcher. But I don't think that will be happening until, next season if the Flyers aren't contending or if they're in another season where they don't make the playoffs. But right now, I don't necessarily think it's anything to be really. I don't really have an answer for you right now because Chuck is still the Flyers general manager at this point. This is from Anthony Detcher at Ranch Deshing or Ranch_Deshing on Twitter. Excuse me. If the Flyers stay at 3, who should they draft? I'm actually, the Flyers will be picking at least at 4 is what it looks like. They have the 4th worst odds right now. The 4th worst odds of the number 1 pick. So that would be my guess is that they pick around 4 or 5 is probably my guess. I think there's a lot of different ones. Logan Cooley would be awesome if he fell. I don't think he will. Matthew Savoie. He's another guy that I also think could fall. Probably don't see it though. Simon Nemec, I think would be a good pick if the Flyers were at 6 or 7. If they were at 5, I'd be okay. But if there's one type of guy that I honestly could seriously see this team getting, if it was a Cooley, a Savoie, I honestly think it could be Slafkovsky. I think he's one of the guys that I think really could fall to the Flyers, and if they get him, I'd be thrilled. I'm going to have a whole draft kind of thing. I'm going to be breaking down a couple different players that I think the Flyers could get in a whole video. So I'll be breaking that down, and I'll have a video up for that as well. But I think Slafkovsky could be one. Cooley, if he falls, Savoie, Nemec would be another. And probably going to butcher this, but Jiricek, the other Slovakian defenseman, he's another one, the right-handed guy. He's another one. There's actually 2 right-handed defensemen in the top 10, which I think is crazy. But again, those are some of the guys that I think the Flyers could get. This one comes from at Carts, CARTZ88 on Twitter. What is the direction you would take this team, and do you think Philly might struggle bringing in free agents? I think they could. I already kind of hit on this at the beginning, but I think they definitely could struggle on bringing in some guys. I don't know who they'll try to bring in. If I'm the Flyers, they're in such a weird spot because they have. They want to contend, but they're not really in the best position to contend. And I talked about the East yesterday. If I were them, I would try to do everything I can for this next season. And if it doesn't work out, then I would just go straight rebuild. Because again, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I do think a coach does a lot for this team. And I do think going into next year, if you're able to put different pieces together, you might be able to do some damage. Now, I don't know what that will be or what that kind of holds for the team, but I think there are different areas that they could definitely look at. Sure, that could help them. This is another one from David Kahns from Twitter. He said, could Forrester play in the NHL next season? I don't think so. I think it would be more AHL. Obviously, he's dealing with the injury still. So my guess would probably be Lehigh Valley for Forrester next year. This one comes from Twitter. This is at Exler_Mike. I almost butchered that. Who do you want to see as the starting lineup opening night next season? Honestly, I can't really answer that for you right now because I don't know who the Flyers are going to have. But if it were like I guess like a pipe dream, if they could get like a Gaudreau or a Mark Scheifele, and you slip them in, and you have your centers as Couturier, Scheifele, Hayes, or whatever way you want to put in, and if you could maybe throw in, if they don't get Scheifele and they get a Gaudreau or something like that, I think that would be perfect. I think their defense would probably be the same, depending on everything with Provorov. But again, I think right now, I think it's kind of tough to answer that because you don't really know what's going to happen going into next year, and you don't really know who the players are. I think if we were at training camp, Nolan, and I think if we were to sit here and look at the roster, then I'd be able to tell you who I want. But I think right now, I think you have to see the direction that the team wants to go first before you really can answer that. This one comes from Instagram. This is at I am Captain Harlock. He has two questions here. Yandel is currently at a minus 43 on the season. This is from a couple days ago. He was ended the season minus 47. Do you see them keeping him around next year? And what's your take on Frost going into the offseason? Yandel, that's a fat no. And my take on Frost, I think Frost is really going to be able to grow. I think he's one of them guys that it's going to be a very big offseason for him. And I think when you go into next year, and I've talked to some people in the organization about him, I think they're really high on him. They really like where his game ended. They really liked where he kind of ended the season and where he started to play with Tippett and Cates and things like that. And you see him building confidence in himself. It's going to be a huge offseason for him. And I think that there's definitely a really good sense that he definitely can be one of the players that's looked at next year to really take a huge leap in his game, and he's definitely one of them, and I'm very excited for him next year. This is another one, that second question. This is a great question, honestly, and it's one I was kind of hoping that I would have gotten, if I'm being honest with you. What's your opinion on these lacrosse-style goals that the likes of Zegras and Svechnikov have been doing? Should it be made illegal? Some say it breaks the unwritten rule. What's your take? Personally, I love it. First of all, if you honestly want to look at it a different way, and Jeff Merrick kind of said it best, and it's funny, it's really funny, but it's so true. It's literally a wraparound goal, and that's all it is. It's a wraparound in the air, and he's honestly right, and it's so funny the way he says it, but like, I love it. It's creative. You don't see it much. Like, it's like, obviously, and you get my point, you've seen it more in recent years, and I think it's just skill to the game. I don't really think it's not embarrassing. I don't think it's embarrassing anyone. If you are the NHL is supposed to be the best hockey league in the world. If you're able to, do these types of moves, this is stuff that you should be able to do without having to get, beat up and punched and stuff like that kind of happened in Arizona. And I know that there's different people that want to say it wasn't because of that. I don't know how much I believe that. I kind of looked at that as like, you know what? It seemed like that was what it was for. And I don't know if it was anything different. Obviously, nothing ever came out. And the whole thing with Tyson Nash and his whole kind of thoughts on it. But I think it's great for the game. I mean, I don't think it takes anything away from how the NHL is. The NHL is what the NHL is now, and they're going to promote speed, they're going to promote skill, because that's the game now. That's the NHL nowadays. There isn't as much fighting, there isn't as much this and that and the other. That's what it is, and I think it's great for the game. And I mean, how many 10-year-olds you see doing that move? It's really nothing that crazy, and I think if you're going to put that into kids' minds that they can't do that because this happens, then I think you're just going to lose more and more kids in the game. And I think it's great for the game. I really do. This is another question here from Henry Kiersey on Instagram. He says, it's not a debatable thing to say they need a proper rebuild to be a cup contender, in parentheses, or even playoff contender. Why is the management so reluctant? It's okay that some fans don't know any better and think that we're another Ristolainen away from being legit, but is the manager just incompetent? I don't think so. I think the biggest thing is, I think the reason why everybody is so reluctant is because I think they're trying to figure out what coach they want to bring in, and I think they also wanted to figure out how Mike Yeo was going to finish. I don't know if anybody is incompetent. I don't think that's the right word, because I think they're all very smart. It's just, it's not working. And I think the biggest thing is, I think that the reason everybody is so reluctant, because it's not really the Flyers kind of thing to rebuild. I mean, they've never tried to do this before. So that's kind of why I think they're reluctant. I don't know if they're going to be like, oh, is it a different area of like, we're one piece away, or we're a few pieces away, or we're going to throw all the marbles into the basket this offseason and try to make the best possible team? I have no idea. That's my guess, because they said they wanted to contend. But I don't know. I don't know if they're I think the reason they're reluctant is because they think they have a lot of talent here, and they do. There's a lot of talent on this Flyers roster. I think the one thing that is huge is that they were really injured, and when you go and you look at all the injuries they've had, and I think if they're healthy, they're better. I don't think they make the playoffs still, but they're better, not as bad as it was. So look, I think there's different areas of it, and I think going into next year, I think you need to. I think the one thing is just trying to figure out where they want to go. I think the reason they're reluctant is because they don't necessarily have an idea of what roster they want to build, and I think they're trying to figure out what's available for them, what they're able to do with what they're spending, and things like that as well. So that's kind of why I think they're reluctant. It might not be the best answer, but that's just kind of how I say it. And this is the last question here from Jason Melroy. He says, does Giroux resign / come back here eventually and retire here? I think my question to the whole Giroux thing is, why would he? Why would Giroux come back here? That's the biggest thing. I seriously don't see him coming back. I don't see any reason why he would want to come back. I just think I think it's a lost cause at this point. So we'll see. But again, seriously, thank you guys for submitting all your questions. I really do appreciate it. Q&A. We'll definitely be doing more of these soon. I got a lot of stuff coming, as I said. Thoughts from tomorrow, and then on Thursday I'll be doing my player grades, and I have more draft stuff coming as well. So again, thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you all again soon.